simply a process is just the way that you do things, right? For anybody here that's read Traction, it's just the way that you do something. So if you can document the way that you do something, what does that create? That creates replicatable results and almost, in a sense, projected results, right? To where you can start to create standardization.
Hey everybody, Jamel Gibbs here. Welcome to another podcast episode. Listen, we have a special guest on the line today. He's been investing in real estate since 2014, and since then, he's done about 500 deals. Now, how many people on the line right now would like to do 500 deals? But here's the best part. Joe is an expert when it comes to automating and systemizing your real estate investing business. And he has a 3-step process and approach that he takes in order to accomplish this. So I wanted, Joe is actually a good friend of mine. We met about a year ago, and we're in the same mastermind, and I wanted to get him on a call because he's just a fantastic guy. And I know he's the real deal. And you guys know that I love to invite people who are actually doing the real estate business, and they're the real deal in their markets as well, so that you guys can benefit from this information. So I want everybody to welcome my good friend Joe Dillon to the call. What's up, man?
Hey, what's happening, man? I feel like I needed, you sounded like you were prepping me up, man. I heard like applause in the background, like an audience. You're like, let's go, Joe. You do a good intro, man. You do a great intro. That was great, brother. I appreciate it, man. How you doing?
Man, you're well deserving of a fantastic intro, brother.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that, man.
You accomplished a lot, man. So how's things been, bro?
Man, things have been I'll definitely say things have been interesting, right? We've had a crazy 2020. And I would say, business aside, the biggest thing that I've experienced this year has been personal transformation, which we can talk about and get into, man. That's the stuff that I really love to talk about. But yeah, man, business has, ironically, business has still been pretty good for me, for a lot of my clients, because I coach a lot of wholesalers around the nation. Things are picking back up, right? And things are getting back to, the grounds of where they were pre-COVID.
Absolutely.
So, and some people are having some of their best months ever, which is amazing. So.
Yeah, man. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and get right into the nitty gritty.
Cool, man. So let's see. I started back in 2014. At the time, I joined up with a partner. And at the time we were, doing a lot of direct mail at the time. Door knocking, a lot of hustling, man, a lot of hustling. We started out cold calling. Man, I remember when we used to cold call from the spreadsheets from our cell phone. Like, we didn't know about the dialers. This is kind of before a lot of that came into the mainstream as far as the real estate world goes. And I was just talking with my boy Nick Perry about it. He's actually in our mastermind, but yeah, man, I remember those days. I would hand dial from my cell phone, line by line on this Excel sheet. And I remember
those days I call them, man.
Yeah, brother. And we would use the TLO. We would use TLO as well, and so it would have like 10 phone numbers per person. And so like I would dial this number, it didn't pick up. No, I went on to the second line. Okay, trying to reach this person too. I would have to dial 10 phone numbers single-handedly to see if I could reach one person. And of course, the majority of the time they didn't. As anybody knows here that is cold calling, the majority of the time, people don't pick up. So anyhow,
so you started off cold calling first. That's how you kind of came into the.
It was a combination of that. We really were initially we were direct mailing.
Okay, got it.
And this was back in DC, so I started up in DC.
So that's where you're originally from.
Yeah. No, DC Metro, right? So I'm from Northern Virginia. Born and raised. I went to college. Actually went to Cornell for a little bit in New York. I lived in Seattle, and I came back to DC Metro area. But yeah, man. To even back up further, real quick. Before that, I was flipping cars. Right. I had a job. I was working. Probably my second year out of college, and the job thing was not for me. And so, but I worked from home, and so because of that, I started my own car flipping business. And then from that, I had met my previous partner Raphael, and he was starting this up, and so it intrigued me, and so we started to talk,
So
and we ended up joining forces.
you and Raphael Vargas were partners at first. How did you like? Why real estate? You were flipping cars. I'm sure you were doing well. Why did you guys choose real estate?
Yeah, man. The margins, bro. Dude, I remember working and I would make $2,000 profit per car. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even less, right? Sometimes there were more. Sometimes you could get a good hitter with like $5,000, but that was it. You know what I'm saying? And then when I was like, oh my God, I can do the same process and make 30, 40 grand, you know what I'm saying, on a house. Now those were obviously really good margins, but this was also 2014 when the wholesaling world wasn't as saturated as it is now.
Hey man, I'm still making $30,000.
Yeah,
I just had a deal the other day. We just made 30 grand on, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're absolutely they're always going to be there. But
yep.
But and we can talk about that too, like deeper deals, how to get deeper discounts, how to find how to increase your average deal size, which I'm teaching all my clients as well. But yeah, man, it was the margins, and then we linked up, we hit it off, and then we joined up, we joined forces.
Awesome, man. So how did you get started in a real estate business? Like, did you guys just come up with the idea? Like, did you study? How did you do it?
So Raph was actually doing it a little bit before me, but when we joined forces, that's when things really started to come together, right? And so, when I came in, we were, just doing direct mail. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I wanted to come in from a systematic point of view. We both had two great skill sets that really complemented each other. And I wanted to say, okay, well, how many leads is it taking us to get a contract? Something that I still do. I still harp on all of my clients, and so at the time, I think it was like in the 20s. Like I would love to go back to those days, right? But it was in the 20s, and yeah, like my story is a little bit different than I would say most people's, but either way, like it started off great because after I think 2 or 3 months, closed my first deal, and that was like a $40K deal. And yeah, and then here's the thing though, and then that next month we closed a $30K deal, and by this time I was already counting my money. I was like, oh, this is easy. This is easy. I'm gonna be a millionaire by next year. And then I was already counting myself personally to be making, 200, 300, 400,000. And then all of a sudden we kept doing what we were doing, and then no deals.
Yep.
And then the next month came, no deals. And then the next month came, no deals, right? And we went through 4 months. I remember 4 months of full-time overtime grinding, right? And we would to supplement direct mail, we started to cold call. But like I said before, we were doing ineffective cold calling. We were doing single hand dialing cold calling from a spreadsheet. And like I said, like I was saying before, it's just inefficient.
Yeah. Why did you think that happened though? Like why were you guys so successful right off the bat, and then 4 months later you're still searching for your next deal? Why do you think?
Yeah, well, because here's the thing, right? And this happens to a lot of wholesalers, even still. People will get a list, they'll start marketing to the list, and then we get what's called diminishing returns, right? So you'll hit a list, and you'll hit it again, and you'll hit it again, and you'll hit it again, and then obviously, or it's seemingly obviously, and I say that for a specific purpose, the return seems to dwindle. And so I think that's just kind of what happened to us. either way, I knew something had to change, right? And so we ended up with, we were about to go bankrupt already, right?
Wow.
Like we were about to go zero. Almost when the business account was back to hitting zero, because we had no idea how to structure a business back then. And so we were just splitting the profits, right? Not really keeping much in the business itself. I mean, we did keep a decent amount. And so I knew there had to be a better way. And so what we started to do was we started to get smart. We started to read certain business books, right? We started to read Traction. We got mentors. We would start to follow a lot of process building in our organization, get things more efficient, right? And so when we did that, we started to really, really see the fruits of it, right? That didn't happen until later, though, in 2015. Like the latter portion of 2015 is when we started to systemize. We were still running like almost on zero, and then out of nowhere, this happened 3 times, by the way. It seemed like our bank account, no deals. Our bank account was going lower, and out of nowhere, we hit we hit a big pop, right? Like from almost going to zero, I got us a deal. I remember that was like 140K profit from a wholesale, and it was due to us. One, it was incredible follow-up, even though still our follow-up system at that time was trash. So follow-up and going where other investors were not going. So we were targeting specific zoning codes, right? So that we were basically targeting in DC. What you could do is there were these row homes, is what they call them, and they were essentially townhouses, but in DC you call them row homes.
Yeah.
And you could pop it up, and then you could also in specific areas with specific zoning codes, you can create condos out of them. So from one single family, you can convert it to two or sometimes even 3 condos. Those were huge deals for us. And so that's where we got the $140,000 deal. And a lot of these concepts and principles I still teach my clients to this day: follow-up system, going where other investors are not going. And so, and looking at opportunities and creating opportunities and deals, looking at them in specific ways. So anyhow, when we got that 140K, I was like, all right, well, we can't continue to do what we were doing. Let's draw this back. Let's take a step back and let's systemize the business. And when we started to do that, we started to create accountabilities. We started to divide the labor up, right? Because, and I'm sure a lot of people can probably resonate with this, but like we were doing, all of us were doing everything. You know what I mean? Like I was doing acquisitions, he was doing acquisitions, like I was doing Dispo, he was, you know what I mean? There was just a lot of overlap of labor. And so really what we did was
organization, basically.
Exactly. Really what we did is systemize and structure. It's crazy how much people call organization. I really like to call it systematic structure, because when you can, something as simple as structure, right, can literally transform your business. I have a client that just hired me out here in Tampa, and he was a mess. His stuff was everywhere. Simply from coming into the business and teaching him the structure, right? I actually came in, he hired me to do a full day consultation, which I don't do often. I do for very select clients, and it's also a pretty penny. Simply from coming in and getting him structured, getting him systemized and organized, he was dry. Like he had only done 2 deals in the whole quarter, right? And this is a guy that's been around for 2 years,
right?
And he also has overhead. He also has a team, right? And so that, like, when you have a team and you're only doing 2 deals in the quarter, that's freaking scary. I came into the business. We did a full day consultation. I got him organized, systemized, and structured. That next week, he got 6 contracts. 6 contracts.
Wow, man.
week.
Wow, bro.
And, that just goes to show you how much of an impact organization, systemization, and automation can have to your business. And so he was probably my ideal client. He was doing, two or three deals a month previously. He's been in the business for 2 years. That's like my ideal profile. People that have had success, but they just want the structure. Boom. And then I teach them the structure and then they fly.
So let me ask you this, man. What do you feel are some of the biggest misconceptions people have when it comes to systemizing or automating their businesses?
Misconceptions. All right. I don't think it's so much. You know what? Yeah. Let me just directly answer your question. It's simply that, like, they have a misconception that systematic structure for their business will not produce revenue. Somewhere in their mind, they have that belief, right? And they get so caught up in the sales aspect, right? The operations, which is like the marketing and the sales, that they forget about the glue that holds it all together, which is the systems and processes. So that's what I teach. And that's why, my students are freaking crushing it. Some of them have, started at 1 to 2 deals a month, and now they're doing, 10. And like my best client, he's doing like 30 deals a month now, and he started with me at 2 to 3 deals a month.
Let me ask you this, man. So do you think that it takes some type of mindset shift because I know for me, when I first started investing, I didn't have the teams. I didn't have all of this stuff in place. I did it all myself.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the concept of, having a team. It took a mental shift for me to be able to get from where I was to where I am now. So do you think that's true for everyone else as well?
I would say it's almost always a personal issue, right? Like you don't have a business issue. Almost always you have a personal issue. I teach my clients, I've been teaching them recently, we harp on a lot of different subjects, but I'm just telling them that business is a game. And much of when you went past a certain level, right? I have different things that I coach based upon where you are. There's a lot of coaches that give one size fits all, solution. Hey, this is what you got to do. This is what you have to follow. But some advice could be terrible for someone that's in a certain position, for someone that has a certain threshold of cash, for someone that's low liquidity. So some advice could be terrible for someone that has high overhead or low overhead. You know what I mean? And some advice could be terrible if they have a lot of cash reserves where they can invest. And so I take a holistic approach. I always ask every single client. We get deep, like and vulnerable. I ask them about everything. Anyhow, I don't want to get too off the subject, but yes, I truly and authentically believe like your business is a reflection of you, right? And so what I teach my clients is business is just a game. And much of mastering business is knowing where to put your focus. Another word for that is prioritization. So the masterful skill of prioritization can get you miles ahead, of where you could be without proper prioritization. Because there's a lot of things that you can focus on that you shouldn't be focusing on at this stage of where you are in your growth as a business. And I've coached hundreds, right? Probably over 400 wholesalers at this point. I've coached them on where they are in their business and to get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a 3-step process that I teach, which we can get into it a little bit later. But just to kind of finish off my previous story, yeah, like once we got that 140K pop, we had some time and some breathing room to say, okay, let's take a step back and let's systemize the business, right? So, we realized that like doing things in kind of a messy chicken with your, run like a chicken with your head cut off way is not going to get consistent, scalable results. And so, I knew that the only way we would gain a competitive edge is if we figured that out. And it wasn't until, I discovered that like consistently flipping houses and really consistently building a business is a science, right? It's not an art. And you just need the right system to give you a huge unfair advantage and rise above. So we started to systemize the business, properly structure our company. And what did that look like? We automated the marketing. We hired specific people into processes so that we delegated ourselves out of the lower level tasks. I give all of my clients a delegation roadmap saying, hey, these are the activities you want to delegate first. These are the activities you want to delegate second. These are the activities you want to delegate third. And I probably go way deeper than anybody else, which is why, my students are freaking destroying it. And, so we automated our marketing. We created crystal clear accountabilities, right? With roles and responsibilities. Like I said, we put, those accountabilities in place. We put processes in place where simply a process is just the way that you do things, right? For anybody here that's read Traction, it's just the way that you do something. So if you can document the way that you do something, what does that create? That creates replicatable results and almost, in a sense, projected results, right? So where you can start to create standardization. So when you create standardization, now all of a sudden you have a consistent, predictable business. In addition to all those things, right, we hired rock stars into those processes, which took, it was a big learning curve, right? And we eventually had a rock solid hiring process, which I also teach my clients, because it is true, the team with the best players wins. You could have decent processes with the best rock stars and you will outperform the competition. Yeah. But if you have the best processes with weak human capital, right, with weak people, then you're not going to do well, even if you have the best processes. So, specific things that I've learned over the years, and that again, I'm teaching and sharing with other people. So what are some other things that newbie real estate investors should be mindful of when they're getting started in their businesses? All right, so this will be a great time to talk about my 3-step process. Okay, so I teach. Why don't we do that? Let's talk about your three. What's the 3-step process that a newbie real estate investor should take in order to take their business to the next level? Well, the beautiful part is it's a 3-step process for anybody, no matter where you are. But some people might already be at the point where they can just skip to step 2, and I'll explain. Right. So the reason I brought this up now when you asked about newbie investors is because the first step is all about creating cash. So it's a 3-step system to consistent business. I used to say 3-step system to 7 figures, but not everybody wants to get to 7 figures. Some people are happy with $50K a month, regular on autopilot. And if they can have that delegated, then they're freaking happy, which, I agree. I like that too. So a 3-step system to an automated, delegated, profitable, lean business. Okay. So the first step is create cash space. So what do I mean by that? All right. So I teach all my clients that there is, you have a cash space target. Okay. So let's say you have 10K in monthly expenses, right? And if you're a newbie beginner, and you're doing this full time, right? You want to set your monthly expenses probably at about 7 to 8K, right? And what I teach is you want to have 4 to 5 months of that to get to step 2. Okay. So let's just say theoretically, if it's 10K, it'll be 40 to 50,000. Why? Because you need to take a step back once you're ready for step 2. So step 2 kind of explains step 1, which is kind of it can be confusing, but I'll explain why. So step 2 is optimize your operations. And what that means is, all right, now you're going to take a step back and really build processes, really build the systems, really build the automation. That's that stage, right? You don't want to do that when you're a newbie. You don't need to set up all these crazy systems, all the processes. Man, I can't tell you how many people avoid taking action because they don't have their systems perfect, right? So number one, if you're a newbie, like your main thing is really a mindset thing, and it's about taking freaking action, taking massive, imperfect action. I actually shoot that as a goal for anybody that's newer, is take massive, imperfect action. It's never going to be perfect. In fact, the people who wait for it to be perfect in order to act, those are the people that always fall behind. Always, always, always fall behind. So first step is create cash space so that you can get to step two, which is optimize your operations. So that's when you're taking a step back, building processes, looking for people to hire, even if it's a virtual assistant, which I recommend hiring first. And that's when you're ironing out your processes and building, starting to build those automations. All right. And so step one, though, is creating cash space. So you create that cash space by narrowly targeting, right? You want to narrow target. So what I mean by that, like when you're first starting out, it's not the time to go broad. You want to go sniper. You want to go narrow, and you want to do it with as much ROE as possible, return on effort. It's not just about your return on investment. If I can invest in something that's going to be $10,000, but it's going to get me my results tomorrow, and the results tomorrow is going to be $40,000, I'm going to choose that all day over an investment that's $3,000 that might take me 4 or 5 months, right? And so ROE is something that nobody talks about. Efficiency. Okay, so how can I be efficient? Okay, that's where I teach them about how to very narrowly target, right? And so, that can come from both targeting specific lists, okay? That can come from stacking as well, and that can also come from, marketing channels, right? Like, for example, you should not be going and trying to do 3 or 4 different marketing channels when you're first starting out. Focus, narrow in, hone in, again, sniper, keep doing that approach and rinse and repeat until you're at your cash space target. That's, create cash space. So that's the first step.
Why don't we elaborate on those steps a bit? Because some of this stuff is a little deep for even the veteran real estate investor to understand. So,
Okay.
I mean, how deep can you go into the information is the question.
Yeah. I mean, I could go deep. So again, the first step is identifying the cash space target, which again, I teach 4 to 5 months of reserves. Okay. Once you have that target, the reason I set a target is now you have very simple, measurable goal. Once you have that measurable goal, right? And again, if you have no idea what your monthly expenses are or would be, or it's brand new to you, just use 7K or 8K and then multiply that by 4 to 5, which would be, 35, 35, 40 grand, somewhere around there. Okay. And your second step, again, is to market as efficiently as humanly possible. So what do I mean by that? All right. So when you start to market, okay, there's a million different ways to market. And if most people here are newbies, let me restructure the way that I'm speaking so that it makes sense. And so obviously our goal with marketing is to generate leads. That's the entire purpose of the department of marketing. We want to generate as many leads as possible, as many quality leads as possible. So we have a seller, all right, and we're trying to target this seller. I'm sorry, let's call them a homeowner because we don't even know if they're a seller yet. Let's call them a homeowner. Ideally, we have all these different motivations, different brackets of homeowners, right? And we want to essentially, in a nutshell, this is really what we're doing to break it down to a very simple to understand level. We want to know, out of all the homeowners that exist, who are the homeowners that are most likely to sell, right? And so when we look at it from that angle, we can start to conjure up strategies such as, okay, the stuff that, almost everybody is doing and that knows. Okay, who's delinquent on their taxes? Okay, who is in pre-foreclosure, right? By the way, pre-foreclosures with equity is one of my favorite ones to target. Pre-foreclosures, right? Who are, my absentees, right? And you can go niche and you can go broad as well. There's a lot of different ways to target homeowners and a lot of different lists that we can acquire, right? So essentially, what I'm saying is, let's say an average market has 250,000 people that you can market to, okay? An average primary market. A secondary market might be like 150, maybe 100. A tertiary market, right, which is, really it's just gauge on population. Secondary market could be like a, let's say like a Birmingham, Alabama, right? That might even be, closer. And then a tertiary market could be maybe like a small market that's population between 200 and 500,000, right? So when you're looking at it from that angle, you can kind of see, okay, I have this X amount of homeowners that I can market to, right? And if you market to all those homeowners, guys, you're going to be broke, right? Yep. So it's about narrowly targeting, okay, what segment of this whole 250,000 records do I target? And so that's what we teach, right? And but to kind of go into some of them, right? You can do specific stacks, like I just mentioned one, like a pre-foreclosure with equity, is a specific stack. You can also do generalized stacks, and essentially what a stack is just, let's say you have somebody that is tax delinquent, and they're and the property's vacant, and they're in pre-foreclosure, right? That might be a super motivated seller, okay? And so, if they have all three of those characteristics, then that will be what we call a 3-stack, okay? So you can do specific stacks along with, 3, 4, 5 stacks. In addition, you can do, you can select the right marketing channel that's going to work for you, and that's going to be a high ROE as well as a high ROI.
Right.
Okay. And so that would be something like SMS, right? And again, this, I tailor everything based on where you are, because there's different strategies and different consultation exists for different businesses that are at different stages. So, I have people that are in the create cash space stage, but they've owned a different business and they have 400,000 in reserves and cash reserves. So technically they're starting, but they have a ton of reserves. I'm going to coach that person totally differently than someone who has, 10,000 of reserves and they're starting their business, right? And so on the contrary, you can have people that have been in business for 5 years and they have 30,000 to their name, right? I've met many of these people.
How it is, man.
and not to say that there's anything wrong with that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it totally depends. I tailor my coaching based on where you are, right? But essentially, yeah, you can do a cost-effective, high ROI and efficient marketing channel like SMS and or cold calling if you can delegate a person, if you can afford someone to delegate it to. If you're brand new, zero money, like I would just recommend, cold calling, because it's, probably one of the cheapest things and it gives you experience on the phones.
Yep. So
if you're new, just cold call your freaking happy little butt off, right? Right. And maybe you're not happy, but just try to smile through the phone. It always works and helps. But yeah, you just need to be taking massive action. So the first stage, which is create cash space, is all about taking massive imperfect action. And your main goal obviously is to generate revenue, right? That is your main goal, because until you start to generate some revenue, you have no business really dialing in your processes and systems, because that's not making you money at that time. Once you start to make money, then you can refine it and then make money on a higher level. But when you're not there yet, you just need to really jump on the phones and talk to as many people as possible. So what do I, for example, like anybody that comes to me and is either on the newer side and or has done a few deals, I give them the simplest structure and systems that I can. That is all that they need to know at this stage to then go. And all they need to do is market and talk to people. That's it. Market and talk to people, market and talk to people, market and talk to people, and then get contracts, right? And then once we do enough of that very specific, repeatable approach, we'll reach their catch-based target. And so in addition to marketing though, right, I also teach that you need a simple lead management and follow-up system, right? Nothing that is, crazy, has all the bells and whistles. You don't need that when you're first starting either. So I actually have 2 different CRMs that I give to my clients. One is for newer people, right? And people that want to get to consistent 1 to 2 deals a month. And then once they're at 1 to 2 deals a month, they want to go to 3 to 5, and then beyond that, that's when I give them, the beast, right? And so that they don't get overwhelmed or confused. And so, the next step is creating a simple lead management and follow-up system, right? Because the reality is, how many leads are actually ready to go, right? So for all you new people out there, you're marketing to all these homeowners. Whether you're sending them a text, whether you're, calling them, cold calling them, whether you're dropping them a voicemail or, you're sending them a piece of mail, how many of those people that call you or that pick up are actually going to be ready to sell right then and there? Not many, right? Not a big percentage.
Right.
And so, yes, you will get the low-hanging fruit, and that just comes with consistent marketing. When you're consistent marketing with anything, you will get the low-hanging fruit, right? And so honestly, even doing that base level, you can probably make enough money to pay for your marketing and break even every month. But obviously you want more than that, and that's where the follow-up comes in. And so you want a simple lead management system, which will allow you to categorize your leads very effectively and create a good follow-up system. And then once you do that, you have the marketing, you have the acquisitions, right? And you get on the phones, you start to get experience, right? We give all of our people a script, but you have the marketing, the lead management system, a script, right? That's all you freaking need to go
start doing deals, man.
Start taking massive, like you guys need to be taking massive amounts of action. There is much more energy required at the beginning to create a business than there is to sustain it once it's already rolling.
100% fact, man. 100% true.
So just like a rocket ship that's blasting out of the atmosphere, most of the energy is required to get out of the atmosphere, and then it's smooth sailing from there. Right? It's not necessarily smooth sailing with business, but you'll still have hiccups for sure. But that is 100% for sure, something that you want to do. So marketing, okay. And I teach narrow, specific, specialized sniper marketing, a simple lead management system, right? So you can track your leads. Because I guarantee you, there's probably a lot of you newbies. Maybe there's people here who haven't done a deal yet that have been wanting to do a deal and that have been marketing for a while. And you might have had a deal, maybe even a few deals, if you were just had a good lead management system to follow up on your leads. Because there's old leads in your system that are wholesale deals, right?
Well, let me tell you this, man. So like maybe 2 weeks ago, I had my guys, they were like, we need some new leads. I said, call back the old leads. So they pulled all of the old leads from last year, started banging them out on the phones, and we got 4 deals in one day.
Dude, I'm telling you. Same, and that's actually one of the strategies that I taught the guy in Tampa that hired me. Remember I told you they got 6 contracts? Mm-hmm. So I told him to implement an RVM reblast. to a specific lead status that was already in his portfolio, and he got a ton of deals.
Yeah,
Well,
that's how it works, man. It's not.
like 2 or 3 deals. Yeah.
You ever saw the movie Glenn Ross?
Mm-mm.
No, so it's a real estate movie. You guys should check that out. They have it on YouTube. Boy, that's where the slogan or the phrase, I should say, "always be closing" comes from.
That okay,
Always be
yeah. I've seen
closing. It
that.
was with what's this guy's name, man? He
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
he's an actor. His name is it's gonna kill me now. Second.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, that guy. He has like a kind of a funky smile.
Yeah, hold on. He does the imitation of Trump on Saturday Night Live. What's his name?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Uh, I need to find it now. Alec Baldwin. That's his name.
Okay, there you go.
Alec
There you
Baldwin.
go.
Yeah, check that movie out, man. If you haven't had a chance, it reminds me of it's a real estate version of the movie Boiler Room, which was a Wall Street movie, and ironically, it came out when I was working on Wall Street,
Mm.
and then I got into the real estate business. Then I saw this movie, Glenn Ross. But always be closing, ABC. One of the things he mentioned in there was, it's not the leads, it's you.
Right.
You got to close the leads, basically.
Right.
It was hilarious, man. Great movie. But so we went through the 3-step process here.
Well, the first step.
That was the first step.
Yeah, that was the first step.
Okay. So
but the second and the third step are more for seasoned investors, or maybe people that already have a good amount of cash. So I can touch on them lightly. I won't go deep on them, but I can touch on them lightly. So like, if you've been in the business for a year and a half plus, and or you have well over your cash space target, then I start with step 2, and that's the optimize. That's where we really start to operate like a business, operate like a company. And so, the first step that I teach on the optimize stage, right? So again, there's 3 major steps, which is catch, right? The second step is optimize your operations. The third step is build your team, right? So that's the 3-step process.
It's all came from that book. It sounds like it came from that book, Traction.
No.
Oh, no.
No. This is straight from the mind of Joe Dillon right here. Oh. Actually, if you really want to get technical, this came as a download through the ether. You know what I'm saying? So there's sub steps with each major step, right? And so I'll just lightly talk about what that step is about. But optimize operations is for the people that they're doing 1 deal a month, 2 deals a month, 3 deals a month. And they lack structure, right? Or maybe they don't have enough time. Maybe they feel like they're doing everything. Maybe they feel like the stuff is all over the place, which, if I'm being honest, every person that I've talked to is there in some way, shape, or fashion. I love about business, like there's always something to improve. It's a never-ending optimization journey. But we get the fundamentals in place, right? So we automate your marketing process. We create an automated marketing machine, right? And so the whole purpose of that is so that you can delegate the heavy lifting of marketing and you can produce tons of leads. Once you produce tons of leads, then we have to capitalize on all those leads. I teach, how to become a master closer on the phones. So once the leads come in, optimizing every lead and converting as many of those leads as possible. Then I teach them the airtight, and I use that adjective, very, very purposefully, an airtight lead management system to where nothing is going to slip through the cracks, right? And you have, a very systematic way of handling and managing your leads, as well as follow-up. And then, I teach them how to develop an outstanding dispositions process. So once you lock the deals up. Like when you start to automate your marketing machine, you're going to produce tons of leads, and then you become a master closer. You're going to convert a ton of leads, and when you build an effective and airtight lead management system, you're going to maximize your leads. So all of those to get more contracts. Once you start to get more contracts, then that's when you're going to need an outstanding dispositions process, right? To sell your deals to investors for one, as high as possible, and two, as fast as possible, and really three, with the most efficiency, right? So I have a whole dispositions process that I teach as well. And, all of these things, by the way, can be delegated. And, but by the way, just to touch on the dispo process, all the things that I teach will increase your average deal size by at least 20 to 30%, right? So if your average deal size is 10,000, right? Typically after working with me for a few months, it'll increase to like 13 or 14 per deal, right? And, you can improve that with negotiations and closing training, right? Specific closing training for your acquisitions people. A great buyer's list, good negotiation and dispo tactics on the buyer side. There are two different types of negotiation, and also a renegotiation process with the seller. All four of those components will skyrocket your average deal size. Anyhow, so that's step 4. That's step 2, which is optimize your operations, right? And then once you're optimized, once you have a business with effective processes, an automated machine, now it's time to fill that machine with rock stars, right? And now this is my favorite part of the business, right? This is the leadership aspect. And now that you have a business that's optimized, it's time to delegate those processes. And so we create step-by-step processes, right? Documented. And then we delegate those processes by hiring rock stars. And there is a very strategic way to hire people. Most people hire out of desperation. And also most people are hiring mediocre to decent players simply because they don't have a good hiring process. Something as simple as a hiring process can double your business. Okay. Then we optimize the team. So once we hire the rock stars, now we optimize our team, right, with effective training, right? I give them all my clients a whole training regiment of here's what to focus on and how to focus on it, and what to do at what specific time with your new hire. Then there's management. Okay, how do you manage them? And then there's leadership and culture, and and all of that. Again, we follow a lot of traction, business models. So accountabilities, KPIs, meetings, right? And then lastly, you're scaling your way to the top. Once you have optimized processes filled with rock stars, then you drive more marketing, and then you have a highly profitable machine. And so create cash space, optimize your operations, build your team.
3-step process, man. Very, very detailed 3-step process. And that's exactly why our listeners need to contact you for more information, man. If they wanted to contact you, where should they go?
Yeah, man. So one, I'm on Facebook, Joe Dillon. You could just, you could just search for me there.
He's not friending anybody.
I think I'm at like my 5,000 limit though, so you got to send me a message.
Yeah.
You can also always follow me on Instagram and shoot me a message there. Pretty active on Instagram too, and that is Joe Dillon Official, JoeDillon Official, OFFICIAL. And then you can also check out our website. And so,
what's the website? What's the web address?
Yeah, the website is 7 figure wholesale. I'm actually, let me make sure that I got this right. 7figurewholesale.com/coaching.
7figurewholesale.com. I'll link everything in the description box. 7figurewholesale.com/coaching. I'll link it all in the description box. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, you have to go to YouTube to get the information. But I got it, sevenfigurewholesale.com /coaching. Joe, man, fantastic information. What would be, let me ask you this before I even ask you that. What are you reading right now? Because I know you're an avid reader.
Dude, yeah, man. And that's one of the, out of all the business things that we've talked about today, what all of my clients say after working with me is that that's not even their favorite part. I am a huge advocate for self-discovery and spiritual development. And I say self-discovery versus personal and or self-development because it's really like spiritual development is like unfolding and unraveling who you think you are. And it's a lot of undoing, which is amazing. But anyhow, I'm reading this book called The Art of Communicating, and very simple, easy to read book. And you know, I'm less interested in scaling my business as I was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm more interested, you know, and I thank God that I can say that I've delegated my business and I've automated my business to a point where I can say that, right? I would love to get whoever's out there to that point too. You know, I probably spend 5 to 10 hours a week working. You know, sometimes I'll spend more if I want to, right? And I enjoy my work instead. So that's also a plus. But because of that, I've spent a lot of time in personal, you know, growth and self-discovery and spiritual development. So that book has been amazing in helping me connect with others. But it's not like connecting to them to get something out of it, right? Like there's a lot of sales books out there. And if you look carefully, you can kind of see behind the scenes, like the motive for anybody, right? You know, for any book, for, you know, for any presentation, right? You can kind of take a look at that. But I'm huge, again, into that spiritual development side. So I just wanted to understand people on a deeper level so I can connect with them more. Simple as that. And so that I can enrich my life with more meaningful conversations and with more depth of relationships. And that's a fantastic book that has shown me to do that.
The Art of Communication.
The Art of Communicating.
Communicating.
By Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Buddhist, actually. And he teaches essentially the deepest way to connect with others is to understand their suffering. Something that's not intuitive, very unintuitive to us as humans. Yeah, and so I've gone through a huge self-development journey in the past 6 months since COVID hit. I was going through a little bit of anxiety, and I never thought that I would be going through that because I've done so much personal work, but it taught me so much. And it also helped me and gave me the ability to understand people on a deeper level, because what he teaches in the book is when you can understand your own suffering, then you can understand other people's suffering.
Yeah.
When you can truly understand your own suffering, most people are too afraid to understand their own suffering. Most people will cover it up with something even like business or material success.
You know, let me add to that, man, because, you know, and I'm getting my seat ready for this one because, you know, just a handful of years ago, right when you started the business, I was pretty much a very successful investor. And right around that time, we're talking like 2013, 2014, I experienced exactly what you just said, anxiety and a little bit of depression. I had, it could have been hormonal. I'm not sure what it was, but in my early 30s, it was, and you're right around 30 right now. But right around that time period, you know, I grinded out so many years that, you know, when I finally made it, there was a sense of depression that kicked in for me, and I needed to. And it wasn't nothing that it wasn't like over the top depression where I how can I explain it? It wasn't like something that wasn't controllable. It was, I think it was more of a hormonal thing. So I wonder if all entrepreneurs go through that. That's actually an interesting fact that we could actually have a whole nother podcast conversation about that.
We could, brother. We could.
You know, but what did you learn from your experience that, because I remember when you posted that on Facebook a few months ago, what did you learn from that?
So one, I learned that business is not everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Money
is not everything, right?
Yeah. Money is not everything.
Business is not everything.
In fact, it's a very small aspect in the bigger picture, right? And so, what is your soul calling you to do on this earth, right? Is it calling you to make a bunch of money and, and do so sometimes by sacrificing potential values that you may have? Is making money and surviving and thriving financially? Is that the only thing that you're here for? And that's something that I had to face and come to terms with. And I realized how much of a focus I had on it. And I also realized how much fear was driving my life. Because all anxiety is, fear and anxiety is the same thing. But fear, fear in an appropriate situation is called fear. Anxiety is an imagined threat, right? So like the funny part is like I was doing so freaking well financially.
And on the surface, honestly, man, look, we're a part of the same mastermind. On the surface, you were happy.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, and the same, I'm telling you, the same thing happened to me. That's when I realized how important my family was. And when my mom passed, I realized that even more, how your life could just be snuffed out from something like cancer. You know what I mean? But that's another story. But I realized how important family is, how spiritual strength is like the most important thing. I live by 4 pillars: spirit, God first, physical health second, family third, and then I live by financial. I guess financial means is always least important. So the reason why, obviously it's self-explanatory why God is first, right? But the reason why my physical health comes before my family is because if I'm not healthy, then I can't take care of my family.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So then the financial aspect of my life, I don't even think about it. It just comes. It just happens, with very little effort at this point in my business, in my life. But at one point, I put so much effort into that. I burned myself out 2 times, over the course of, it's been going on 20 years I've been in business. And midway through, right around that 2013, 2014 time frame, man, I had a bout of depression. And I didn't know what was going on at first. And I realized it was depression after the fact, but a lot of that came from just kind of putting my head down and saying, I'm going to grind it out. Yes, we as entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs who face depression, successful ones. That's why you see a lot of actors out there. That's a whole nother conversation. There's a lot of successful business people that actually take their own life because they don't know how to control it. Right.
Totally.
So that's a disease, man. I think we put too much time into the one thing and we don't experience other aspects of life and what's really important, because we see social media and the things that people seemingly have on social media, that plays a major part in the wants that people want, the material things. And I think people, when you start focusing on what others have and not worry about what you really want, that's when you're on the wrong path. You have to figure out what you want out of this business and not what other people have, because that's not what you really want.
Absolutely.
Joe built a 7-figure business. He said it earlier. Maybe you don't want a 7-figure business, right? Maybe you're happy making 10 grand a month. You know, maybe you're happy making 5 grand a month. Maybe you just want a little side hustle to make some extra capital to pay for something, right? But know what your personal goal is. Don't base your life or your business around someone else's structure, their business structure. That was a huge part of my personal life. Did you have that same discovery, Joe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things is a lot of times the thoughts that you're thinking aren't even your thoughts. Yep. And so what I mean by that is we have never been exposed to so much as a society. Not only do you have your parents' ideologies and opinions and thoughts in you, you have your classmates when you're growing up, you got your friends, and then now we have this thing called social media. There are so many societal conditioning factors that play a part in your subconscious that you're not even aware of. And so the path of spiritual development is unraveling, like I said, who you think you are and getting to the core of who you really are. And when you can get to that core, like the soul, like I believe that, you know, we're not this meat suit that's walking around, right? This is flesh, this is dirt, this is earth, right? We're walking around in earth suits. I don't believe that that's who we are. I believe that underneath there's a soul, right? And so the soul is actually never fearful. The soul is never anxious. The soul knows your path. It's the conditioned ego that gets in the way. So the more that you can disidentify with who you think you are, right, and the conditioning factors that have been laid upon you, the more you can start to operate from a place of wholeness. See, the soul doesn't feel empty. The soul feels totally whole. And when you can feel that wholeness, you can then operate from abundance as opposed to scarcity. Says most people, I would even say probably 99% of entrepreneurs are operating from fear, right? Whether they know it or not. Most people don't know it, but they're operating from fear. And because of that fear, it drives them to do X, Y, and Z, right? And that's operating out of your survival mode, right? You know, and we can get into this on a neurological level, but we won't, right? But but I believe that our brain hasn't caught up to where we are, right? With social media, with you know, well, actually, let's take that apart. Even the way that we're living right now, we don't have any real threats, really, right? Like in our old days as the human race, there would be the tiger that's like right next door or like right by that tree that's about to eat us, and that's a real threat to our life. And that's how we're hardwired. But our brain, I believe, hasn't caught up to the way that we're living right now. We don't really have threats, but it still thinks that there's threats, right? And so that activates the fight or flight nervous system. And then that keeps you in a stress survival mentality. When you can take yourself out of a survival scarcity mentality and operate from a whole place of wholeness and abundance, all of a sudden, everything that you create is going to turn to gold. Everything that you create now is going to be totally different, especially as a business owner. So that's another piece that I've learned and that I'm still learning myself, but that I also teach my clients. So.
Yeah, man, we got to get you back on and have a deeper conversation about this stuff, man. That's another episode for another day. How about that?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
But, hey, man, I really appreciate you jumping on. Any last words for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of further go down that road, just know that create a plan for yourself, right? Like understand that Okay. Like, don't get sucked into the hamster wheel of making money. Create a plan and say, hey, okay, look, well, this is my life plan. Okay. I want to start this business, and I want to start making X amount of money. I want to delegate it to where I'm making X, Y, Z. And then, I want to focus on other things, right? Or if you're already in the business, right, you can create a plan, right? And understand that money isn't everything. Only other thing that I would say, on a business level, just go back through and just understand the steps to scaling your business. There's certain steps that you should follow at a specific time. But apart from that, creating a life vision is something that can help you drastically, and it should be something that's exciting to you. You have the capacity and the ability to manifest whatever you desire in this life, and the more that you exercise that manifestation muscle, the more that you'll see it come to fruition. And so one of the greatest tools is visualization, as well as just vision planning. So, that's why I say map out a vision for yourself and visualize it happening on a day-to-day basis.
Joe Dillon, folks. Listen, check him out. All the details are in the description box. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.